Welcome to the 17th broadcast of the t-roh show. That's your host, Keith. You got Tony and Stu. Say hello, guys.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, we had last week we were talking about, which is a pretty, in my opinion, was kind of a heated program as far as the looking at the war crimes that have been committed all around the country that nobody's actually talking about. And we've found some other stuff about Albert Pike. We found an intention to create these things. So, Stu, if you want to share screens, we can take a look at what's going on and what's really happening and who the targets are. So that's what we really want to know.
Yeah, so this is a letter from Albert Pike written to Giuseppe Mazzini, and they're both Freemasons. And the letter is dated 1871. And I want to draw your attention to this section here that talks about the Third World War. And I'll read it to you. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. So we're putting forth this that many of the nations in Europe are experiencing right now, the refugee crisis as they're referring to it. This is all staged. It's all orchestrated. It's managed, manipulated. And just quickly scrolling up, here it is, Albert Pikes, 1871.
Plan for 3 world wars.
Yep.
Okay, so if the Christians feel that they're being attacked, then there it is. They are.
Absolutely.
And so this is a fight. Each side believes they're good, and each side believes the other is evil. That's what this is basically stating, as far as I see it. They believe they're righteous, and then they think Christianity is crazy, and then the Christians think that they're righteous, and think that Luciferianism is crazy. So, I get it. Because if you look at the dynamics here, you'll look at. Have you noticed that they've been talking about Russia? That the Trump administration was colluding with Russia, and then you've got the other side talking about we spied on him, and so spied on this guy, and then we wiretapped this guy, and all this other stuff. The Trump Tower was wiretapped, which really, I mean, it's the same story over and over again. It's like living the same day over and over again with these two same stories. So what are they doing on the other side that your attention is being manipulated towards those two issues, which there's no real end to those issues, if you follow what I'm saying. It's like they say, well, he colluded with Russia. Well, Russia is democratic, and it's a federal government, militarily occupies its states. Same thing here. You have a Virginia company, which is the way that the English see us, by the way. I was speaking to some people over in England, and they had talked about that that's actually the Virginia company. They're federal, federal corporation, the Virginia company, and it militarily occupies this all the states of the Union, under the title of General of the Armies, not General of the Army. So that's going to be General of the Armies, ARMIES. And a lot of people don't even know or even heard of that title, but it's not a commander-in-chief, it's General of the Armies. You have the commander-in-chief of when it comes to the President of the United States, and then you have the General of the Armies when he says or she says or whoever says that they are the President of the United States of America. So that's what that means, General of the Armies. A lot of people don't realize that's what's going on. Is there another one here?
No, that's it. I just want to flesh out a little of the context. Now you can understand if in fact we're accurate, which we are, with this Albert Pike excerpt. Now you get to see how the pieces fit together, where you get Barack Obama, a Muslim, put into the presidency so that he can fill his advisory panel with Muslims. Why 2001 9/11 was pinned on the Arabic world. You see, it's all a build up to attempting to pull this off, and the refugee crisis is the latest in a long line of incidents that are managed, orchestrated, and presented to the public for them to lose their mind over, basically.
I think this also demonstrates too that this isn't something that just happened overnight. There's a lot of people that are barely becoming aware of what's happening, and they think it comes out of nowhere. But as we can see here by Albert Pike's excerpt, they've been thinking about this for quite a while now and planning it, implementing it, and now you're living the manifestations of this plan. So it didn't just happen overnight.
I agree. Yep.
Right. So they're attacking Trump. Not that we're for or against Trump, folks. This is we have our own government. We don't care about any of that stuff. It doesn't really affect us. But so they're attacking. So the Luciferians in Hollywood have been attacking the Christian Trump. That's so. No matter what he does, he can't get a break on anything. I mean, the guy, he just can't get a break on anything the man does is attack it. It sucks. It's horrible. Duh. And it's constant. And so there are constant attacks from the Luciferian Hollywood, which everybody knows is nothing but massive pedophile ring. And Trump, who I believe he's Catholic Christian. I don't know what. I believe he believes he's Christian. But that's why they're attacking. It has nothing to do with his politics or who he is or what he's doing or anything like that, or that he's attacking anyone. It's just this is all orchestrated. This is all done right in front of your face.
Right, and for instance, as an example, to build off of your Trump thing, the borders. You know, he's trying to tighten the borders, if not close them, to militant Islam. And that's being fought ferociously by the left. And now you know why.
I wonder if the Islamic world realized that they were in league with Luciferians, what they would do about that. That'd be interesting to see, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I have no idea whether they know or not.
Right, and they didn't know that the immigration was due to money and the private prisons here. They didn't know that. Once they found that out, there was a guy on LinkedIn that backed out of the whole argument. He stopped. He's from Islam. He stopped. He says, I had no idea this was about money, because he thinks it's about, Allah and his truth. And so basically, I bet you if we all got into a room and we hashed it out, we'd probably all become friends because we'd realize that there's a third party here that's screwing around. Communication is the key. Well, we have a general post office, right?
Yep.
Communication is the key.
Yeah, yeah. I think you got, you know, it's the who's in the loop type of situation. You know, the folks on the ground, mid-management level type of people, they don't really know what's going on. They're believers in their faith and, you know, their religious doctrine, things like that, and you know that's fine. But the people that are moving the chess pieces, Albert Pike, that kind of crowd, the religion has nothing to do with any of this. It's money and bringing about their new world order at the expense of the populace.
Expense of everybody else but them.
Mm-hmm.
Which, in fact, folks, that's evil. Because if it was righteous, it would bless all sides. Everyone would be blessed, not just the very few.
Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't have to do it in secret, and they wouldn't have to, you know, blackmail leaders. And yeah, no, it's
crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's bad.
Okay, let's move on. If you want to stop. Okay. This is what we've got right here. We just put this out as far as the seal of the Treasury was concerned, Treasury Department, and we've thrown it out there and really didn't say much about it. No one said anything. It was basically, let me move this a little bit. There we go. Okay. The government of the United States of America hereby reclaims its original Treasury Seal designed in 1780. Everybody knows time is everything. Time is the essence of existence. So if the seal was created and designed in 1780 for the Confederacy, which was the government of the United States of America hereby reclaims its original Treasury Seal that was usurped by the U.S. Treasury until it was abandoned in 1968 by the U.S. Treasury. The government of the United States of America hereby exclusively carries the burden of nationality, government, and national money of the country known as the United States of America and the states of the Union within it. The foregoing seal shall govern the Continental dollar. The Treasury Seal is hereby brought forward to the present time and placed within the Articles of Confederation as amended August 5th, 2015. And this is the specific seal here. Now, why is this significant? The seal of the Treasury Department, it says the present design of the seal of the Department of the Treasury was approved by the Treasury Secretary Henry H. Fowler on January 29th, 1968. Because it was used by the Board of Treasury under the Articles of Confederation, and basic design of the Treasury Seal has existed longer than the federal government itself. Hello. This is on their website, this treasury.gov. Why would they bring that seal forward and none other from the Confederacy of 1781 under the Articles of Confederation? That's the whole thing. Why would they do that? That makes no sense. If, in fact, the 1789 Constitution was not the Virginia Company and it was literally a national government, why would they need to bring this seal from the original? That's the whole thing. I have another one here for you. This is the seal we're talking about. Right here. That came from the original Confederacy of 1781. Now we've got something else for you. Sorry, folks, this is just the way it operates on share screen and Zoom. So you just have to be patient with us. Okay, take a look. They stopped using this in 1968, but 1906 they had it right here. This was the seal from the original Confederacy. You wouldn't have to take that seal if the government was actually replaced. That's the whole point. Now take a look at the top. National currency from the United States of America. Right there. The. They put the word the in there. And it was secured by United States bonds deposited with the Treasurer of the United States of America. That was the 1781. This is the name of the country, folks. That's your name, the name of the country. It's not the United States. It's this right here, the United States of America. National currency. This is not out of our mouth. This is out of theirs. They know the truth. That's all we're trying to tell you. They know exactly what's going on. So we brought that back. They had abandoned it in 1968, been usurping it from 1780. And the national currency called the Continental dollar is now under that seal. Huge, by the way. Okay, we've got another thing. We're going to go through 7 and 8 on creatures of the state. National security breach, creatures of the state, part 7. Now you know that everything that this government is doing, meaning the government of the United States of America, is in fact valid, and it is the national government, and that is the name of the country, the United States of America. Okay, we have first in time, first in right status, by the way. So this is part 7 of the series involving creatures of the state. Part 6, the global accounts were discussed. Part 7, the presentation goes a little deeper into who is controlling the global accounts and why. This is on the 5th of March 2016. Pope Francis calls them for the mass migration of Arabs into Europe and to Europe an invasion. So, on the 5th of March 2016, Pope Francis calls the mass migration of Arabs into Europe an invasion. Then he turns around and says, what? You guys remember what he said? We need to integrate with them and all this other stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, they reclassified it as a refugee crisis.
Right. So now we know for a fact that Francis is lying, because on the 5th of March 2016, he calls it an invasion, and then turns around and says that we need to that Europe needs to integrate with them and have babies with them and all that because your population is getting too low. So which is it? Is it an invasion, or are we are we trying to set up a baby farm?
Yeah. What is it? Well, it's an invasion, and then he got a memo from somebody.
So we know one thing: the man's a liar. We know that for a fact because he says one thing, and then a year later he says something else. That's the whole thing. However, in the same breath, he remarks that if it's not handled correctly, the cultural exchange can help it grow, according to the Pope. Okay, so he's just saying. So he's advocating for an invasion. All right. Which goes along with Albert Pike and what he was saying.
But see, so the Pope, what he did was he kind of reclassified it so it wouldn't be considered a war crime.
There you go, man. We're on it today, bro. That's right. That's called reclassification. He classifies it as an invasion, or he calls it an invasion, says it what it really is, okay? And then if it's handled correctly, the cultural exchange can help it grow, according to the Pope. Help what grow? The invasion?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. So it's a positive thing.
If you're not paying attention, yep.
It's a positive thing.
If you invade correctly, you can, reclassify it.
That's good. All right. To the average individual, this remark sounds backwards. How can someone turn an invasion into a cultural exchange and try to spin it into something positive unless they are behind the whole invasion and attempting to hide the fact? All right. There further, something positive would relieve the guilty party of the war crimes. Oh, we talked about war crimes back then, didn't we? This was what was it, March 9th, 2016? We were calling war crimes back then, folks. It says it is a little different for Vatican City today than it has been in the past. The reason for this is because Vatican City is recognized as a sovereign state, when in the past it had to rely on the monarchs of Europe to support it and recognize it. Okay, by the way, we do have all the history of where they were originally recognized as a sovereign entity and all that. Actually, they had to fight to get their religion recognized, which was Roman Catholic. A lot of people don't know that. They used to catch it also. Okay, it says an invasion implies war. Vatican City came clean as to who is responsible for the invasion and attempted to whitewash, reclassify, we should have put that, the facts to keep it from being labeled a criminal state. It says here's an article that's very enlightening to most people. It says the enlightening part of the article are the comments below the article. Quote, the Inquisition had the Catholics slaughtering Christians all over the known world. They also killed a hell of a lot of Jews. Muslims? Not so much at all, since Muslims want to kill Christians and Jews as well, end quote. There are many other comments like this and over 500 comments made on the article. This line of thinking prompted a look into the history of the symbols of Christians and Catholics and the differences. What was found was the fish predated Christianity. Uh-oh, you're kidding me. So the Christians can't claim the fish. At one time or another, the Catholics adopted the fish as its symbol and started calling themselves Christians. During the Inquisition, the same Roman Catholics slaughtered Christians. So did the Roman Catholics conquer the Christians and then said, well, okay, we're just going to take their religion from them? I don't know. It just didn't make any sense to me. It says, then we looked into secret organizations in America and found that the Shriners have a hidden past and claim to have severed themselves from their original founding. It says, here's the text of the current blood oath. It says, by the now this is the Shriners. You know those guys in the parades, right, with the hats on, the red
Absolutely,
hats?
that's right.
Okay.
The little cars.
They work with kids. Hint, hint.
Yeah. Okay. So it says, by the existence of Allah and the creed of Muhammad, by the legendary sanctity of our tabernacle at Mecca, we greet you. This is the Shriners, folks. How many people knew that the Shriners were Muslim? The inductees then swear on the Bible and the Quran and the name of Muhammad and invoke the Masonry's usual gruesome penalties upon themselves. And they say, I do hereby upon this Bible and on the mysterious legend of the Quran and its dedication to the Mohammedan faith. I thought it was the Muslim faith, not Mohammedan. Promise and swear and vow that I will never reveal any secret part or portion whatsoever of the ceremonies. And now upon this sacred book, by the sanctity and sincerity of a Muslim's oath, I here register this irrevocable vow. Wow, that's an irrevocable trust. In willful violation, wherefore I may incur the fearful penalty of having my eyeballs pierced in the center with a three-edged blade, my feet flayed, and I be forced to walk on hot sands upon the sterile shores of the Red Sea until the flaming sun shall strike me with livid plague. That's some serious, I don't know, that's crazy stuff. And may Allah, the God of Arab, Muslim, and Mohammedan, the God of our fathers, support me in the entire fulfillment of the same. And then they say amen, and they say amen 3 times. I won't say that because I'm not taking that oath. I'm just saying that's what's written. Okay, so the Shriners run around in the little cars in parades and are deeply connected to the Masonic Lodge, which is connected to the American Bar Association, which is connected to their religious state created within a state, and claim to be privileged class of people that also claim to be Christian. yet slaughter Christians, highly favor Islam at every turn, and boast daily of killing a man 2,000 years ago on a cross. The cross with the depiction of a dead man on it appears to be a constant threat to the Christians whose original symbol was a fish. Cross was never a symbol of the Christians. But when they took it over, they made it that's a warning. Just so everybody knows. The current Arab invasion looks a lot like an Inquisition perpetrated by the Roman Catholics against the Christians of Europe, which in fact it really is. The Inquisition, they call it Inquisition, is actually a war crime. The Inquisition started in America when the Ten Commandments were taken down from public buildings. This Inquisition needs to be funded, so hijacking the global accounts would make sense to fund the Inquisition with Christian accounts, and the reason for claiming to be Christian when it appears that the Roman Catholics are not much different than the Muslims. It is legal in Vatican City to have sex with children, just like it is in Islam under Sharia law. However, unlike the Sharia law, they are forbidden from abusing and raping children. There's a link there. So it must be okay. It says if you can have sex with children just like it is in Islam under Sharia law. However, unlike Sharia law, they are forbidden from abusing and raping children. Oh, okay. So I guess that's okay. This is sick stuff, man. It says this is where Vatican City tried to claim sovereign immunity to keep from having to pay for the crimes. And that's a fact they did. You guys can go to this link. It's the 1952 link on reignoftheheavens.com. It says it sounds real Christian to attempt to run away from the crimes, doesn't it? It says, but people that claim to be responsible to God and speak for God are running from God and liability. So here's a current legal maneuver made by Vatican City to gain jurisdiction over Christians. Pope Francis claimed that Christians do not exist outside the Roman Catholic Church. So he says, you're under our jurisdiction, guys. And then we've received some comments on this particular newspaper. It says that they were never Christian, and they were correct. We posted that, and yeah, they're right. They never were. They had nothing to do with it. Since Vatican City is a sovereign state, the Vatican claimed that all Christians were subject to a foreign state. That's called human trafficking in violation of the law of nations. So, folks, if you are Catholic and you join the Catholic Church, the Vatican City was only recognized as independent about 100 years ago as an independent city-state in its own country. That means you're a part of a small country and you've declared exile and or relinquished all citizenship in the country you're in. Ouch.
Yep, this is amazing. This article is incredible.
So anyone that claims to be Catholic, you're actually falling into a separate country. When you walk into a Catholic church, you need a passport. It's a completely separate country. I bet you nobody realized that, because Mussolini was the one that recognized them as an independent city-state, which means at that time, everybody that had joined the religion, the Catholic religion, at that time became Vatican City citizens. And when that happened, they declared exile or were trafficked from the country they lived in. It is impossible for Catholics to be U.S. citizens unless there's a dual citizenship agreement and it's all laid out. Or unless the U.S. citizen is in fact a citizen of Vatican City and the three city-state empire. That's a lot to think about.
That's a lot to think about.
I would be seriously questioning my status after that, because we all know that the Roman Catholics and the Masons and the Bar Association and all of them are the same thing. And then they say, well, why did they leave Yehushuans alone? It's because they're not at war with Yehushuans. They're not at war with the Reign of the Heaven Society Temple. They're not at war with non-Christians. They're at war with Christians. So there it is. So Vatican City is now liable for war crimes and crimes against humanity with intent to commit genocide. When they get rid of, and what we mean by committing genocide is when they get rid of the identity of those individuals and call them something else, that's genocide of that identity. So it is also liable for violations of religious rights and the right to follow one's own conscience. So there will be no doubt the many other crimes committed before this is all over. And man, have we seen them. 6,000 war crimes in Sweden alone. It says, however, the aforementioned crimes are not a good start or a good start. It is not believed that this particular Inquisition will end as planned by Vatican City. It is hoped that this article will begin the process of Christians connecting the dots as to why they are under constant attack at every level, and some ideas as to who is behind it and what the Christians can do to protect themselves. Since Vatican City recognition, Vatican City can now be sued for its crimes. If this article offends anyone, then stop doing offensive things and no one has to be offended. Huge. All the links are there.
Oof.
Absolutely enormous, folks. When you start looking at this from a international law and law of nations point of view, everything is now revealed and you can't reclassify something. These are folks, these are people that are taking advantage of the ignorance of people that do not understand international relations. Law of nations have never read it or even heard about it. Believe me, they have. So this was the last episode of the national security breach by creatures of the state. So now we know that there's a state within a state, which is a U.S. state, which is a Catholic state. No difference between that and Islam. And it says, sequence of events. 1913, the national currency was placed in the hands of a private central bank. 1928, a national currency was no longer issued and the Treasury of the United States was emptied and all property fully transferred into the hands of a private central bank on Manhattan Island, known as the Bank of New York Mellon. The U.S. Treasury becomes trading agent for a private central bank in 1933. 1945, military coup by the commander-in-chief of Truman by pledging the military and all resources to the United Nations. Page 6, last paragraph. Matter of fact, I'm going to go take a look at that. Page 6, last paragraph, because he was going by the May 7th, 1933 pledge by Roosevelt. So they had planned on that from the beginning. They do everything just one little step at a time. 1947, all courts are taken over by Administrative Procedure Act of 1947, thereby dissolving courts of law and equity. There goes all your equity, right? So if you're living in a home, you don't have equity in it anymore, no matter how much work you did to it, and you have no claim. The Bar Treaty of 1947 making all lawyers representatives of the United Nations, and they absolutely are. They are representatives of the United Nations. 1962, a prayer removed from the schools. A lot of people don't realize that it happened in 1962. They think that that was current, and it's not. It happened in 62. The Regent's Prayer and the Engel versus Vital, that's the case. It says 1971, Post Office Department dissolved and replaced with the USPS private company. There goes your judicial. Have no more judicial authority. 1973, United States removes itself from the gold standard. That was why they got rid of the seal of the original Confederacy in 1968. They were moving towards the remove itself from the gold standard. They had to get rid of the gold standard. The government of the United States of America has that seal and is now moving towards the gold standard. 1999, the United States goes into receivership over and over. 2001, country is attacked from within and the people are declared a national security threat through the Patriot Act. So the people themselves were, first they attacked the Twin Towers. So it really wasn't an attack, folks. What that was a demolition. So Manhattan Island demoed its own twin towers. So the Dutch demolitioned their own twin towers. That makes sense? That's what really happened.
Yeah, it does, because we know about Manhattan Island.
Yeah, yeah. They demolitioned their own buildings and then called it a terrorist attack. When most of the people that were, the BBC has found a lot of those men that said that they were on the plane, that they were told to everybody that they were on the plane and hijacked it. The hijackers themselves are still alive. I don't know how that was. Must be a miracle. If they ran into a building, how are they still alive? They found like 4 or 5 of them. If you look around, you'll find the
I'm familiar with it. I've read a couple of references to that.
Okay, so country is attacked from within. So their country is attacked from within, which is Manhattan Island, because it's its own separate nation. It's its own completely different country. In 2008, the real estate market bubble burst, causing millions to be homeless. Most of those people are Christian. Okay, you might want to mute out. On the evening of 26 September 2015, Pope Francis has taken the throne of Father of all families. So he went on the golden throne and became Father of all families. Let's move back to where this was. It's the U.S. fighting man. Oh, that was page 6. Okay. I think I remember this now.
Yes, I do. It's there.
And the code which we propose considered the standard. Okay. It says, and then too, the United States must constantly be aware of her high position of world leadership, and the code we propose must consider the standard of the 10 Commandments and of our Constitution, as well as our pledge to the United Nations. I remember that.
Yeah. So the pledge was already to the United Nations was already in existence.
So the May 5th or May 8th, 1933 pledge made by Roosevelt was to the UN, which happens to be where? Oh, Manhattan Island. Yeah, that's where it's headquartered. A lot of people have not seen this. They have not seen that at all, or probably didn't even go into that. That was a good one, though. Okay. Throne of all families. Here's some questions that all Americans need to ask themselves. Or, I'm sorry, what do they call themselves? Vaticanisms? Or Vaticanins?
Vaticanians.
Vaticanians? Is that what
Vaticanians.
I really don't know what they call themselves. But I guess, all right. It says, here's some questions that all Americans and Vaticanians need to ask themselves. How can anyone be accused of attempting to overthrow something that has been systematically dissolved over a 100-year period? Right? Because the United States keeps saying, you're trying to overthrow the United States. Well, okay, that's simple. You guys already did it, so I guess you need to blame somebody. It says, how can anyone claim the Constitution of the United States of America is the law of the land when it has been taken apart piece by piece? How can anyone claim, hopefully my connection is going to be better here.
Can you read?
Do what?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say if you can. I was gonna say that your connection. You sounded a little choppy there.
Yeah, got it. Okay. How can anyone claim that the Constitution of the United States of America is the law of the land when it has been taken apart piece by piece? It says, how can anyone claim that the oath of office is required to something that has been dissolved for over a 100-year period? That's a pledge to the UN, folks. It says, how can anyone be a threat to something that has been systematically dismantled by its own line of succession of commander-in-chiefs? How is anyone responsible for a signature of a commander-in-chief? Are all decisions made arbitrarily today? How can a sovereign of one nation call for immigration into other nations, and where does that authority come from? Okay, how can people have an election and vote under something that has been systematically dismantled and dissolved, or hold offices that do not technically exist? How can someone be accused of being anti anything when there isn't anything to be anti against? Since we can ask many questions on the same topic without being redundant. Further, we can also quote many other events that were key in reaching the condition of everyone sees themselves in today. The first reaction to this line of thinking is going to be denial because it's depressing to think about and ponder the reality of our situation. Most of the people responsible for the sequence of events are dead. Why does this generation carry on with their treachery when this generation does not have to follow this plan of destruction? See, that's my main question there. Well, why do you have to do what they say, man? Just change your mind. Go in a different direction. They're dead.
I think that's why they call them sheeple.
I guess. It says this generation can say no and repair the sickness and damage already done. American nationals are in the middle of the recovery process. It is time to reflect and act in a positive direction. Otherwise, the next generation will have to do it for you, which is simply not fair to the next generation. Okay, so I think that we may have missed the significance of this particular link. U.S. Fighting Code of 1955, which means today the military, okay, is pledged to the United Nations, guys. They're not there to protect you. And this is why the Continental Army was brought back. The U.S. Fighting Man's Code. A code is a code. This is the DOD pamphlet right here. We didn't make this up. Published by the Office of the Armed Forces Information and Education, Department of Defense. United States of America, not the United States, which is United States of America. It's different entity. I don't know why this is having issues. But if they're pledged, okay, to the UN, who's protecting you? And why do people constantly parade and adore and all these things, men that have pledged themselves to the United Nations, as well as our pledge to the United Nations? Their pledge to the United Nations removed the 10 Commandments and their Constitution. You'll see how that worked together? Pretty cool, isn't it? I mean, it's pretty slick by the World Communist Party. I mean, they really are. I mean, today the world communists are so slick about this. They're trying to make Russia an enemy, saying that they're communists. So you got communists saying that the other guy's a communist. Then you have Luciferians that saying that Christians are evil, and then the other way. It's going both ways. Everybody's getting messed with, and everybody's being confused.
Exactly.
So if you see through this, it says, be aware of our high position of world leadership. So they claimed the high position of world leadership, then claimed the country, which was the United States of America. They call it the United States now. They call it country. It's not. It's just a military force. Militaries cannot be countries. And then, so they traded their position, their sovereignty, their everything for being world leaders. You guys are going to be world leaders. Okay. So they gave everything up and said, okay, now we're world leaders. That's stupid. That's a really stupid thing. They tried to pull that crap on us. They wanted to give us our human rights defenders and human rights tribunal. They wanted to give us United Nations ID cards. They really tried that. They tried to give us United Nations ID cards and that we were become UN judicial officers. Believe it or not, they did try to offer that to the human rights or defenders.
Yeah, bring you in as part of the apparatus.
Yeah. So what we're doing here, folks, is since all this is messed up, you guys are seeing it. Everybody else is seeing it. It's not. It's not hard to see. what we're doing is we're bringing back, or we brought back, the Continental Army, which was from 1775, 1776. And the Continental Army you can sign up for, where is it? Sign up for the Continental, there it is. Sign up for the United States of America Continental Army, your country's army. And the vision for this, and we'd still have to meet on Thursday again, we're going to be putting in regulations. This is just in its infancy. We really haven't done, this has only been going on for less than a week. So everybody realized we just had our first meeting last Thursday. And we came up with the new emblem, Continental Army. And the Continental Army fought in the Revolutionary Wars, 1776, to stop the oppression of the King of England and the Dutch East India Trading Company. Now we all face a new threat of oppression from all sides. This is the Great Seal above depicts the liberation of the Hebrews. That would be this right here. From the oppression of Egypt, it says it symbolizes freedom from oppression and greed that fuels it. Okay, so if anybody was wondering, they'll look at our seals, oh, it's religious. No, that's not what it means. It says, now it is time once again to assemble our people to unite together as a liberation army to halt the attacks against our liberty and speech. Speech is being hit like you've never seen before. Liberty was beat up 30 years ago. Okay, we have far too many militants invading our country, and it is time to make it stop. War has been declared against us, and therefore must be met with equal or greater force to stop it, and send a message to those that wish to oppress us and take our families into bondage. The U.S. military, now you understand why we say this, the U.S. military can remain in the classification of a peacekeeping force, world leadership, to comply, obey, and bow down to its communist commanders, because that's what the United Nations is. It's a communist organization. The Continental Army has a rich history of liberation, and therefore it shall be raised again to fulfill its noble purpose. It says the Continental Army needs people that have experience in the armed forces. Further, signing up for the Continental Army grants immediate American national status within the United States of America. It meets every Thursday. We're still doing all of the regulations and things like that, so it's in its infancy, so don't freak out. It says, warning, signing up to serve the Continental Army may automatically remove the U.S. citizenship classification from your person. Virginia company policies, and you can read that link if you want. It says that if you sign up for a foreign army, because we're not a part of the United Nations, we're foreign, a foreign nation from them, the original country, by the way, a country that you believed you live in your whole life, you would be separate from United Nations forces. Says the Virginia company policy reads as follows. It says, although a person's enlistment in the armed forces of a foreign country may not constitute a violation of U.S. law, and it doesn't. It says it does subject him or her to the provisions of Section 349A, which provides for loss of U.S. nationality if the U.S. national voluntarily and with the intention of relinquishing U.S. nationality enters or serves in the armed forces of a foreign state engaged in hostilities against the United States, or serves in the armed forces of any foreign country as a commissioned or non-commissioned officer. Okay, so just keep in mind, folks, we're not against this right here. Okay, so we're not going to be engaging in any hostilities against the United States. That's not what this is all about. This is about protecting our families, just like we said up here. It's about liberation. The liberation force. It has really nothing to do with conquering anything. It says, the Continental Army not be engaging in hostilities against the United States, and unless specified, the enlisted will not lose U.S. nationality unless specific or specified. Therefore, there will be two enlistment forms. It says, let us make this very clear. The Continental Army is being raised again to stop the oppression of those who wish to declare war against us, and therefore liberation is its mission. You see, Switzerland or Sweden needs to be liberated. That's the problem. England will need liberation soon. Our country needs to be liberated. Canada will need liberation soon. The Continental Army is not an occupation force for the purpose of conquering foreign lands. The Continental Army obeys the laws of war and restrains others from committing war crimes against civilians. When liberation has occurred, the Continental Army goes home. The Continental Army is a all-volunteer military unless commissioned. At this point, the General Post Office, the National Assembly, and the Human Rights Defenders are working together to form, organize, and regulate the Continental Army. The General Post Office will not be in charge of the Continental Army. So the Office of the Postmaster General will not be in charge of the Continental Army. The Continental Army will serve government of the United States of America and the states of the Union within the United States of America as a liberation and defense force to eradicate foreign oppression from within. It says ranks and uniforms are still being created, and advancement opportunities are ground floor and wide open. This is the perfect time to be able to say that you served under the same army as did the revolutionaries that fought the revolution of 1776. That's a proud thing to do. This is it right here. This is the Continental Army ranks. This has nothing to do with the U.S. military, by the way. Although the U.S. military likes to try to claim it being vetted from them, that's not true. They weren't connected at all. Okay, so you can put your military experience here. You can either to relinquish U.S. citizenship or not intending to relinquish U.S. citizenship, wherein American national will not be granted. So it's not against the law. You're not doing anything wrong. And we've already had people signing up, by the way. So we do have our meetings every Thursday night to go through all this, and I think this week's going to be regulations, and I think we're going to throw an oath in there, an oath of allegiance or something of that nature. So we'll work on that. So that's a lot to chew on, guys, and a lot to hit. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode or this broadcast of the T-roh Show, and thank you for the many subscribers that have come in. We've more than doubled our subscription on YouTube. We have a bunch more surprises for you for next week and the week after. So please share this with your friends. And thank you for listening to the T-roh Show. Want to say goodbye, fellas?
See you next week, folks.
We'll talk to you next week.